lovely snack for us. We're enjoying it so much. Thank you. And we're going to be entertained today by Benjamin and Kristen. And they're going to tell us all kinds of wonderful things that they're doing for our children. So we're excited to hear what they have to say. So thank you and enjoy the presentation. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Can you see us in the viewfinder? Yes?
No, yeah, Tracy can see us. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Kusha.
I'm Benjamin Maxner. I'm the principal here.
I'm an instructor in Career Realities. We are going to do something a little bit different. We're trying out a new way, a parent interactive meeting. So we're going to ask you to do some stuff, and we are going to demonstrate some of the different ways that we interact with your children in Career Realities and Work Readiness. Did everybody get the handy-dandy worksheet? Yes?
Yes.
So one of the ways that we support the students in our program is we work on time management, we work on teamwork, and we work on flexibility. Benjamin and I are hopefully going to be demonstrating these themes during our presentation. This presentation kind of piggybacks off of our parent orientation at the beginning of the year, where we gave a kind of long-winded description of work readiness and career realities. Now, this aspect is more along the lines of how parents can directly support their children in what we're actually studying and learning in these classes directly. You'll notice a difference, and it's a marked difference, and it's an on-purpose difference of the way that we teach. A lot of Benjamin's presentations, or all of Benjamin's presentation, is going to happen up on the board, or up on the screen, and mine is going to happen over here on the whiteboard to demonstrate flexibility, different ways of information coming in and out of, different ways information is transferred back and forth, and to show how important it is to be fluent and comfortable in both of these environments. So we're going to start off with, we're going to do it in 20-minute increments. We have way too much information to show you guys and tell you guys, so we're keeping each other in check. We are going to time ourselves in 20-minute increments and see how it all goes. So Benjamin's going to start off.
Yeah, so thanks, Kristen. I teach the work readiness curriculum, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to focus today on one of the 5 pillar principles in a way that you can support your child with these kinds of concepts at home. Now, one of the biggest differences between, say, a college or your standard high school learning environment and what we do here is we have to match the realities of the workplace. And frequently in the workplace and the employers we're working with, they'll make a certain number of accommodations, but they will not make so many accommodations. Like, they're not going to be able to sit in a business meeting, for example, and have someone else take notes for them. So I know at the beginning of the first year, when I was talking to the first year students, of which I can see a lot of familiar faces, which is excellent. I asked the students and I said, okay, we're going to start taking notes. Like 5 out of 12 hands go up and say, actually, I'm not going to take notes because I have an accommodation. And I said, no, you are. Sorry. And we'll work with you and we'll be supportive and loving about this, but we have to bring you up to a level to be able to do this. So I usually start with PowerPoints, and Jacob's dad, sorry, Dan, is going to be helping me out with PowerPoint, so if I'm pointing over there, he'll just be moving my slides. So what I do when I'm doing this, in great part, is because I know that most of the people on the spectrum tend to be visual learners rather than oral learners. And as such, everything that is highlighted in a separate color, my slides are a little different to make it easier for them, but on this particular slide presentation, anything that they are supposed to write down is highlighted in red. And they know mandatorily they have to do that. Everything that follows in those slides, they need to summarize in a sentence. So the format's really clear. We went over note-taking very clearly, and then I do checks as we go. Okay, somebody summarize this slide for me. And they'll give me like the 3 or 4 things that are in red, and then they'll summarize the meaning of each one. Okay, so these are the 5 pillars of our work readiness curriculum, the 5 general content areas that we're doing it across. So these are, I guess there's one more than that. Okay, so professional appearance, professional demeanor, what we're going to focus on today, which is self-management, problem solving, and conflict resolution. So essentially, these work up in order of complexity. So self-management requires an understanding of what's required in terms of appearance and demeanor, as well as timeliness. And then the techniques and strategies that I'm going to present, some of them today, go into problem solving, and then conflict resolution is just problem solving with emotions. It's a lot more tricky and difficult. So, okay, so self-management. So self-management is anything people do to maintain routines or create some kind of desired behavior change. And this can be used to, and you can go through these quick, Dan. So live a more effective in daily life, break bad habits and replace them with good ones, accomplish difficult tasks, achieve personal goals. So essentially the idea is, and we all know this, right? If you want to do something for yourself that's positive and you want to work your way towards something, you have to somehow come up with a plan to do so. So everyday examples include getting up in the morning, which is hard for a lot of our students, getting to work on time, also hard for a lot of our students, dieting, and you just, yeah, these are, we're gonna go quick. Daily hygiene, using a calendar, creating reminders, sleep management, anxiety management. That's a big one also, and that's something that we're gonna hopefully, I've been in touch with the people who have done behavioral relaxation training, which is a modified form of mindfulness meditation to be done in the workplace in really small increments, a lot of self-assessment, so it's really cool. Hopefully they'll come in and do a workshop or train us on how to train people to do that. I think that would be brilliant. The results they're getting are awesome. Okay, so recent work readiness examples, and these are ones that come in every single day, accepting and incorporating feedback. You know, a lot of individuals on the spectrum will be very rigid, either stylistically, or they'll have a certain idea of the process that they need to go through. A lot of them have cheats or shortcuts because they're self-taught in the first year, and we need to break them of those habits so that we can get them to the most efficient mode. And frequently the feedback, we kind of have a general rule, which is the feedback never stops until the client runs out of time or money. And so there's no such thing as this is finished. It just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming in. Even if you didn't get notes, it doesn't mean that they loved everything about it. Sometimes they just need to move on. Okay, so our feedback model looks like this, and I want you guys to be really clear on how we do this, because I want them using this stuff in their everyday lives. If you're giving them a grocery list, if you're telling them, hey, these are the chores that you need to do today, they know how to do this. Okay, so we start with taking notes, just to ensure that they have all the information. Then we do that, and this is the key, verbal summarization. It's a takeaway of main ideas. It needs to be in their own words. You know, they can use keywords or phrases, but we don't want them just mimicking or regurgitating what we told them. This is so classic. We have a ton of great mimics. They write down notes verbatim. They can say them verbatim. Some have photographic-like memories. And then I'll say, what does that mean? They have no understanding whatsoever. And so it's, you know, we always want to assess, is this a can't do or a won't do? And one of the ways you assess from the get-go is, can they tell you what it is they're supposed to be doing? If they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing, even though they wrote it down, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, so you got, and then we teach them that when they're doing this back to you, and this is a behavior analytic term, we ask them to use autoclitics. And that's a technical term that essentially means modifying the strength of your behavior. So it avoids conflict. And we all do this in our daily lives. So some examples would be, and you can roll through these pretty quickly. Let me see if I have this right. Seems like what you're saying is blah, blah, as opposed to, you said black, not green. Well, that's not exactly what I said. Yes, that's what you said. Right? And you see this all the time. Like, don't be so angry. And the person's like, I'm not angry. You know, as opposed to, it seems like you're angry. No, I'm not. I'm just a little upset. So I don't know if there are more examples or not. Okay. Create a checklist. And you use that same checklist for a quality check so that they go back through and they check them off to make sure that they did everything correctly. Now, our assumption of individuals in our program is that they go through this process. We actually have a worksheet that that's on our vault that they can access and print out tons of. And we want to make sure that they go through the quality or the quality control, quality pass, quality check, the QC column before they even raise their hand and talk to us. We don't want you to, unless you need help with a problem, we don't want us to come in and look at your work if it's not done. And, you know, again, we do this in a really loving, friendly way to teach them how to do it, but that's a professional expectation. You know, don't call us up and say, oh, hey, like, come check this out. And you're like, you're only 30% of the way through. Because those are things that we want to teach them to be able to manage themselves. Okay, so another example is we're trying to work all the time with the notion of flexibility. And there's two general kinds, right? We've got behavioral flexibility and psychological flexibility. As a behaviorist, I believe they're all kind of the same. But one, when we talk about things behaviorally, we talk about them in more practical and observable terms. And we talk about them psychologically, these are more emotional, internal, and non-visible terms. And I like to talk about both because most of us come from the cognitive psychology world, where we talk about feelings as motivators of behaviors, and that's why behavior analysts are not well received socially. So, we talk about it as the first thing if you want to see flexibility, behavioral flexibility increase, is we need behavioral variation. We need you to try new things. Do something out of your normal routine. It doesn't matter what. Now, the vast majority of the time, this comes from what we refer to as pliance, which is somebody recommends you to do something. Oh, when you're in this neighborhood, you should try this. And then you do. And you're like, wow, that was awesome. That was great. You're more inclined then to take advice from others. Oh, when you're in Austin, you should go check out this barbecue joint or whatever it is. Now, it doesn't always need to come from that. People can just do it because, oh, I have to take a new route because, I don't know, a motorcycle crashed on the freeway, so I have to get off the freeway. You know, there's a million ways that this can happen, but it's super important that there is constant variation within somebody's sort of day-to-day routine. It doesn't need to be massive. It's not like every day they have to try new food or something. But in the autism population, for the most part, they make a rule about how to do things, what to eat, and then they follow that rule pretty precisely. Right? You don't see as much variation. So this is something that you at home can really push your children to do, your young adults. And then tracking. And this is something individuals with autism also tend to struggle with, which is attending to it and remembering what happened. Right? Did it work? Did it not work? Oh, I had this idea that taking surface streets to get to EM was going to be faster. Was it? You know, I can't tell you how many times I've talked with somebody about their tardiness, and they say, oh, it only takes me from the time that I get up 15 minutes in, out of the shower, dressed, and into the car. Are you insane? Like, I have no way. Like, you don't drive that fast even. You know, like that's just not a possibility, right? And as such, I want them to actually time it out. And what they find is, oh, that's actually 25 minutes. Because they're counting, they're only starting the timer from the time that they turn the water on. Not from the time that they actually get out of bed, walk, take their pajamas off, go to the bathroom, brush their teeth, whatever. Okay, and then this last one is just monitoring avoidance behaviors. Because these are usually great areas to select to try new things. Oh wow, I avoid eating anything green. Or I avoid, I don't know, going to sleep before this time. Oh, well then we gotta try that. Because why do you avoid it? We need to test that. Okay, so then we talk about summarizing that all, and all of the students in all classes should be able to tell you this. I would say it comes down to try and track. Try new things, track how it worked. Okay, and then we talk about increasing mental or psychological flexibility. We talk about it as expecting change and then accepting when it comes. Look, it's gonna change. You're never gonna have things your way all the time. That's just not realistic. So expect and accept it, and then adapt to those changes. Recognize that a lot of those things that come at you environmentally, you are not in control of. And then experiment with different solutions. You may have an idea of how this is going to work perfectly, and it's probably not going to work perfectly. It might work, but maybe there's something better. Even though you found something that worked, you know, like and a classic example would be like, wow, what makes the most sense to me is if I'm running late, ask for a burger, I can pick up a breakfast burrito, and because I can call it in ahead, my general wait time there, like parking going in and coming out, is under 5 minutes. That's a really fast way for me to get breakfast. Is that the best solution? No, because it's before I get on the freeway. And so even though I've like checked out my ways in Google Maps, and I think that changes quickly. So I found that, hey, I can go to the donut shop across the street also, and they do breakfast sandwiches as well. But the wait time there varies anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. And you can't call in an order ahead. So those are things to weigh in and weigh out. But I only know all of that information by trying. right? And then actually paying attention. Because I'm a behavior analyst, I like to measure everything. Okay, so self-management has 3 primary parts. So these are self-monitoring, which is recording when a behavior occurs. Goal setting, which is picking how often you want to engage in the behavior you want to change. And Kristen's going to talk a lot more about what kinds of goals we can do. Is this a lot, a little, never, 4, 1, 10 times per day? And then reinforcement, right? Rewarding yourself for meeting your goals. This last part most people leave off. And what it doesn't do is program for a new pattern of behavior. You did it once, great, wow, that diet was a lot of work. Well, maybe you need to reward yourself by buying new clothes that look snazzy with your hot new bod or whatever it is. You know, and then with the goal setting component of it, you know, that a lot of times prior to being able to set the goal, you need to self-monitor. The example I gave in class is I had this friend who had a girlfriend who thought he was an alcoholic. And I said, wow, well, he's like, I need help. You know, you're a behavior analyst. I need help reducing my drinking. Look, I'm not an expert in this area. You know, I've read a lot of the research. So my first question is, how often are you drinking? And he goes, I don't know. I said, well, why don't you measure it over 2 weeks and come back to me? He drinks, on average, 6 beers a week. And I was like, is this all at once in like under an hour? No, this is about 1 a day. And so then we looked at the health guideline. You don't have a drinking problem. There's no intervention needed. You know, if you want to lose weight, now like maybe a beer a day is not the way to go, but there's no problem here. So then that was a totally different conversation. He's like, oh, well his perception of what he was doing was radically different than what he was actually doing. And we know that self-report from tons of study, from survey study, is wrong about 65% of the time. So if you think you're like, and we hear this all the time too when people use the wrong autoclitics in conversations, you know, I'll be having a conversation with a kid and he'll be like, no, I've never done that, okay. You know, or you always do that. Well, that's not true either. You know, nobody always or never does anything. If we could get that kind of consistency, this country would be crushing it. So self-monitoring, right? So this just allows you to, and these are, you know, view your own behavior more clearly or objectively, right? Does this represent a problem? Is it disruptive to you or to others? Does it interfere with your personal goals? And then, does this seem normal? This is something that for most behaviors, thanks to Google and statistics, you can compare it to some national average. Is this within the framework of what's okay? I was surprised to find out when I looked it up on the Mayo Clinic that they said that 2 to 3 drinks per night is within the normal healthy range. I was like, that's a lot. I was like, so I upped my drinking immediately. And then it also permits you to measure progress. Am I making, you know, progress towards the goal that I want? You know, is the behavior increasing or decreasing? Am I moving towards my goals? And then you can change your goals or plans based on the data that you're collecting. And usually this is just frequency stuff, you know, like you write a little tally or you do something, we ask them a lot. And the golden rule that I give these guys is look at the effects of your behavior and then change your behavior accordingly. You need to, if you want to get through the world smoothly, you need to look at what's working and what's not working, especially in conflict resolution. You may be coming at it a completely professional way. You may be following all of the appropriate rules of the workplace, and it may not be having any effect. So do something else. I hope that makes sense.
Now, if you will notice that we will talk about a lot of the same things, but we'll talk about it in different ways, and we'll start to make sense here. So you guys are, I'm asking you now because you have worksheets and you have special EM pens and a special place to write. I'm asking you to take notes. And this is exactly what our students are doing. So we're going to make the happy career realities triangle right here. Basically, if you can imagine our permanent products are takeaways. They're tangible takeaways, and they're dynamic and they're fluid. So in career realities, we start off and we have our foundational skills. The permanent products associated with that would be like our resume, our LinkedIn page, the elevator pitch that hopefully perhaps you've been hearing your students, your young adults saying to themselves to memorize around. The technical skills would be the demo reels and the personal websites. And right now we're working on applied practice, so listening and speaking in the workplace, how to interview, how to look for jobs. We have speakers that are coming in, we're interacting with our speakers, we're doing note-taking based on these speakers. Tomorrow, for example, the homework for the students is, or the project that they've done is we've just introduced Adobe Spark Video, and they are reporting back on aspects of career reality. So this is a free app that they've been working with, and you can ask them for it because it's going to be published, and they can send it to you. They're going to talk about the kind of their takeaways from career realities. The way that we have it organized is in a learning to learn model, with the idea of like, give a man a fish, you feed him for the day, teach him how to fish, you
A person.
lifetime, got that, yeah.
Person.
Maybe
Not
I
just
need
a
to
man.
not, a person. If you give a young adult a fish, right? And this is not, looking for jobs, interview process, it is not static. It is a very dynamic experience, and it changes every year too. So one of the things that I give the students, this means Google it, and we'll talk about things like they'll need to Google resume keywords 2016, for example. Because the resume keywords, words that are important, the SEO words, the words that are picked up by the computers in HR when they're churning through the resumes, they change every year. So maybe like last year collaboration was hot, and this year we do not collaborate, we do something different. So there are different things that are on the web, and it's always updating. So what the students have been taught is here's what's happening, here is what is current now, but what you need to do next year, what you need to do in 2 years is re-look it up, because it's going to change, and it does change, and it will change. We even checked out things from 2014 to 2015 to 2016, it all changes. What we told them is a good kind of guideline is every 6 months or a qualifying event. And a qualifying event, whoops, that's when you're going to update your resume would be if you have a new job, a certification, a graduation, or every 6 months. So I've asked the students to put literally an alarm on their phones that in 6 months, check in with your resume. In 6 months, where are you? Did you complete a project that isn't on your resume? Did you do something that isn't on your LinkedIn? Is there something that you need to manage in relation to your elevator pitch? So it's just, we're constantly, we want to be in like that flow. It's not, I've got my resume, I'm good forever, because that's not reality, and that doesn't work in today's vocational situation. Also, we'll be doing career realities. You can see, I'm not sure how many people have had a chance to, but please come over and take a look at our binders. Now, career realities is second and third year, so obviously the first years don't have these, but we have vocational binders. They are a tangible representation of what the students have been learning since September up until now. It's organized in relation to the curriculum objectives. So there's a part on how to write a resume. There's a part on how to, the employment process, resources for searching for jobs and employment groups, blogs, things to get them kind of in the groove. And these are tangible takeaways for them that they will be able to not only use now, but use in their future. The very interesting part of it is, and I think I think it's the favorite part, is in the very back, it's called My Ideas. So every month, the students have to present a new binder cover. At first it was like, why are we doing this? Well, they're presenting, so it's public speaking in front of a group, and how often in their future and even in their present are they going to have to pitch their new ideas. So it started off and it was a little tenuous, and people felt, worried about speaking in front of groups. And now it's very interesting because everybody's like, it's today, right? It's today. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna present. And they're starting to interact and give feedback because sometimes students will build off of what they did the month before. They'll say, oh, this is a concept I've been thinking of. This is a cartoon I've been working on. And so it's interesting. They're starting to give feedback to each other about what their work is. Also in the My Ideas part, they are required to write a summary when we have a speaker come, if they go to a conference, any kind of outside event, just to remember. Because we talk about in 2 years, if you go and have an interview with this person who came and spoke at Exceptional Minds 2 years ago, how great would it be to say, oh, I remember when you came to Exceptional Minds and you talked about this, this, and this. That shows that you were dedicated, that you are on it, that you were paying attention, and it's a really nice highlight in a job interview. So what they've been trying to do, and also they've been doing that with movies, anything that's interesting to them. And you know, you think I'm never going to forget this because it was so awesome, but we forget. And it's a really nice support. In addition to the note-taking models, but it's a really nice support for them to say, wow, I have been doing a lot. Because you know, sometimes you feel like, God, I haven't been doing anything. They've been doing a lot, and they've been working really, really hard. So if you want to check those out, they're great. The names of the students are on the back, and everybody, you know, they've given us permission, and they're all very proud of the work that they've done. It highlights creativity, independence, self-starting, motivation, and organization, which is a skill that is a challenge for many of our young adults. So what I'm going to give you right now, there are 3 vocational takeaways, and so that was kind of the interactive part that I was talking about that I want to show you, and you could start doing just right now. So supported note-taking is something that goes through reality class. It's kind of, you know, we're going old school, we're going back to pen and paper. The primary reason on that is in the studio environment, there are no electronics. So when the initial shot information is given, when the quality control and feedback happens, when that whole loop happens, it's all on pen and paper. So it's really, really important that the students are really familiar and feel very comfortable with the note-taking. In addition to that, there's also social things that we have just started doing where you can take notes on your phone. Sometimes we have challenges with oral comprehension, we have challenges with short-term memory, and everybody's messing with their phone all the time, so it doesn't look any different if you're just taking notes maybe on the conversation we just had, or where did we say we were going to go. And so we do a lot of the pen and paper. So the 2 forms of applied practice in note-taking, the first one would be the phone, and that would be primarily in a social environment, which would be like conversations and lists. And on paper for vocational skills. And it's very important in the precision involved in this type of work is very, very important. So it's really, really, really critical that our students have a good, clear, smooth loop in relation to their note-taking. The Premack Principle, which is actually how we started, well, let's see if I can get my ABA down. We started doing the note-taking in Career Realities by having them watch YouTube videos that they like. So about movie makeup, about Rube Goldberg machines, quirky, funny things like that. They had to provide 10 details, then they had to respond to the details, and every week we would kind of build on that. The ABA principle attached to that is called the Premack Principle. It's where you pair a higher order behavior, basically note-taking, with something that they believe is lower order they currently don't like, such as note-taking. But now it's very cool because they have figured out there's a reason for this. It's kind of fun. It gets me watching kind of cool stuff. And now they are starting to ask for different kinds of note-taking. They are starting to come up with ideas on, hey, I saw this movie trailer. Could we do some note-taking on movie trailers? I'm like, absolutely. You know, so it's very cool. I mean, they're owning it. They're getting really good at it. And again, there's a section in their Career Reality vocational grinder that talks about each aspect, kind of how we build. We started in work readiness, and then we build kind of into deeper, more layers in Career Realities. So I'm moving right along here. Break room chat. That's what we have just started recently, and that has just been a phenomenal success. We had the Toastmasters come here. It's a public speaking club, it's an amateur public speaking club, and they do a session called Table Topics, which is basically where you speak between 1 and 2 minutes on a topic determined by someone else. Now let's imagine our population, how relaxing that sounds, right? Not so much, right? But, I mean, I love when I am so pleasantly surprised. They owned it so hard. I mean, they really, really have done such an amazing job. What we've done, it's been 3 weeks now. Starting tomorrow, it's a free-for-all, so they don't know who's going to be chosen. We have started off, and I will ask them simple questions that would be like chit-chat, right? Because you imagine that in a work environment, you start off and you're hired for a technical skill, but also when you're interviewed, they're also kind of checking you out in your social, right? How are you going to be at the work party? How are you going to be walking to the conference? How are you going to be, at the Christmas bash? Or, are you going to be able to maintain in that way? And that is equally as important, those social skills. So we talk about kind of that light chit chat when you're walking down the hall with someone. It's not deep and involved conversation, but it is very, very important, and it makes for a comfortable work environment. We all remember, sitting next to someone who doesn't talk, that feels awkward, right? And we don't want to subject our student or our young adults to that, so we need to directly teach them. So what we do in class is our rules. I choose the topic. I ask them a question, and they need to speak between 1 and 2 minutes, and they need to stay on topic. And those are the only rules. And these are things you guys can practice in the car with them, you can practice at home, and it's actually really, really fun. We have had, so the other rule too is pause. So sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge for our students to speak for 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes on a certain topic, right? And so I'm actually timing them, and I'll say, what's your favorite hobby? What's your most memorable vacation? Things like that. And then they need to talk. If, when they're talking, they get to a stuck place, they get to the place, we say pause, and then we give them helpful feedback. Do you remember? Could you give an example of that? Things like that. So a couple of the things, these are a couple of little tips that I've noticed, is they get a little tripped up on superlative words. Like best, favorite, first. So, for example, if I asked a student, tell me about your first airplane ride. And so we've had these experiences, and this is what I'm reflecting on. Oh my gosh, my first airplane ride was at 6 months. We're hearing this literally. We're hearing this in the concrete mind. And I'm like, no, this is chit chat, because timing is involved too. You got about 5 seconds to respond, or that person is gonna say, you know what? I don't think they want to talk to me, right? So I'm like, okay, so the first thing you think of, that's what you're going to go with. Maybe you flew on the airplane when you were the first time in 6 months, but you more remember when you were 10, and let's talk about that. Because it's all part of that timing and that flow, right? And then also in relation to that, we've had some experiences where someone talked about their best vacation. At the end, they're like, oh my gosh, I think I just mixed up 2 vacations. And I was like, I couldn't tell, And so we give them kind of a helpful feedback in that kind of way. And it's very empowering to them. A couple of students have worked with me. They came up to me after class in the past couple of weeks, and they said, wow, this is so hard. So we have worked on it in Writing Lab in a one-to-one environment. We would spend 15 minutes every week in Writing Lab. This is student-directed. Also, this is student-initiated, where they got to that place, and they said, how long do we have to do it? I said, as long as you want. And then you will stop when you want. You still have to be in class, but you can come to Writing Lab. And these students have graduated themselves out of their kind of self-imposed tutoring on this, because they're getting it now, which is just really, really amazing. And the other thing that we talk about too is humor and bringing other people into it. Everybody has their preferred ideas and their preferred topics and things. So we notice and we commend and we give feedback on, wow, I can totally understand what you were talking about when you said your favorite video game. Oh, I remember playing video games like that. So there's a lot of praise involved, because this is hard stuff. This is really, really hard stuff. But they're doing an amazing job at this, and this is really something that you guys can take home and really work on with them, because it's super important. The last example I have is I asked one of the students what their first bee sting was. And I was so proud of him, because, he goes, you know what, I've never had a bee sting, but this is how I feel about bees. And so it was, and that's a little bit of like social information right there. I was like, that was the most fluid transition I've ever heard. And then we looked at like, what's the difference between, I've never had a bee sting before, conversation stops. Person moves on to the next person. He said, I've never been stung by a bee, but this is how I feel about bees, and I really don't like wasps. And he took the conversation and he spoke for a minute and a half, and it was beautiful, and it was seamless, and it was very, very appropriate. So this is something I definitely recommend. It can happen in the car, it can happen at the dinner table, it can happen anywhere. Everybody's got 1 minute to work on this, and the students are just amazing in it. And so I am just super proud of them. How am I doing on time? Am I good? Maybe. Last one I want to show you guys is 7 minutes. And it's called 7 minutes because that's how long they take the break in the studio. Apparently 5 minutes is too short and 10 minutes is too long, so the break in the studio is 7 minutes. I don't have any other details on that, and I don't really know why, but that is what it's called. So we want to encourage the students to take breaks. And a lot of times they're in an environment that's about this big. And so, and it's really important to acknowledge the aspects of fatigue, of looking at a screen, of sitting in one place, sensory issues. And so I've been teaching them a couple of different things that's literally like exercising your eyes, your hands, your head, your whole body, but just in kind of this environment like that. The first one I wanted to show you, and if you guys would like to try it with me. So wrist twist, if you put your hands together like this. And basically, you make circles. Again, we imagine that we're at the computer all day, and then just take a breath and release like this. And when you make an audible exhale, your body even relaxes more because it acknowledges it. Rubbing the tendons in your arm, that mitigates fatigue and it brings fresh blood. So we have our big tendons in our arm, and if you literally push hard and roll back and forth, it should hurt. If you're doing it right, it does hurt. It brings fresh blood to your arms. Another one they like to do is cartoon faces. So this is the animation industry, and we all do like to talk about cartoons, act like cartoons sometimes. So what I'll ask them to do is make your face really small. Open up your face. Don't make your face really big. Show me your happy face. Show me your sadness face. What do you look like when you're afraid? Yeah? And then with breathing too, we have issues with anxiety in our population, and one little tip that I show them is if you imagine when you breathe in and out, if you're regulated and breathing in and out, usually the amount of seconds of your in-breath and your out-breath match. When you are in a state of distress or feeling anxious, usually it is unbalanced. So if you can take a minute right now, there's no number, whatever number that you count to when you breathe in, try to make that, match on your exhale. So if you breathe in and you count to 5, then you're going to exhale and count to 5. And this is actually something we can all do, because when you do feel stressed, if you want to match those things, you can literally feel your stress decreasing. So let's just take a minute right now. Breathe in, count silently in your head how many counts it takes to breathe in, and then match your exhale of how many breaths it takes to, or how many seconds it takes to breathe out. Again, it falls in a mindfulness, in the mindfulness variety of self-care and self-management. So the takeaway from that is take regular physical and mental breaks. Benjamin.
Can I ask one question, or do you want me to wait till the end?
You can ask about your.
So, you talked about the 2 types of note taking, but I see the corporate world or the business world going to tablets, no paper. So, do you guys practice that as well? We're paperless, we're basically paperless, and so there's no
Yes.
taking.
The answer is yes, and when we go through our note-taking curriculum, I present all studies done by Harvard about the difference in retention and accessibility between handwriting and digital note-taking.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a tablet, like that'll be sweet if everyone had a tablet, but not everyone does, one. And two is, they should be able to, every single person in our entire program should be able to summarize this for you. So essentially, handwriting is better, but it's longer. It's harder to revise, right? And typing is faster, but not as good. You know, it's way easier to store, it's way easier to manipulate, it's very organized, it's great. I mean, I remember my brother, you know, he wanted to get into Dartmouth, which he did, good for him. But he, yeah, good for him, right? I'm not better.
That's not aggressive.
That was not aggressive. Good for you, buddy. Way to go. But he used to take all of his notes, and then every night, and we had a computer, he would sit down and hand copy them over again and revise them.
Well, some people learn like that.
Yeah, and then, well, that's what he would say, that he learned like that. I just thought it's because he didn't have any friends. So that's my story. Again, not bitter.
But just in relation to that, in the studio specifically, in this environment,
Yeah,
in
they are
this
not allowed to.
particular vocational environment, not looking at vocation as a general, but specifically in the studio, they drop their cell phones at the door.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're teaching in that particular environment.
And while we totally ultimately give them preference, we need to make sure and maintain across all 3 years that they can do both.
Right.
So I mandatorily had everybody handwriting all their notes at the beginning of the first year of work readiness, and now, hey, whatever works for you is fine.
Yeah,
Now,
I
obviously,
love
somebody-
paper,
yeah.
but I'm having.
No, yeah, and that's a big issue downstairs. Like I know that Marvel, for example, they have specific contracts about, you know, mobile devices, about internet access, and other computers don't have the internet, because we don't want to accidentally send the shots from, you know, Doctor Strange to Facebook or,
Right.
you
Hey,
know,
somebody.
yeah, we can't afford to do that. And now we're getting contracts with some pretty sweet companies, you know, beyond HBO and Marvel, like ILM is how, I mean, like some really, really big companies. So it's really exciting, but because security can be a big deal, they may or may not permit that. They may or may not permit you to save anything to, I don't even know if the computers down there even have Word on them. I would presume most of them do for the title stuff, yeah.
But we want them to be flexible in the way of like, hey, I'm gonna do it this way, both are no problem.
Yeah, you
You go
tell me.
handwriting, you go digital, no problem. I don't have a problem with either because I'm really good at both.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, especially also there's this other logistical issue, like if you're getting feedback on a shot that you have up, it looks weird unless you have a separate screen to like close your shot that they want to look at and give you feedback on and pull up a Word document and start typing on it. It'd be awesome for everybody to have tablets, especially, you know, a Surface Pro or the new iPad Pros where you can write and hand write on them.
Yeah, it just seems like that's becoming the.
Yeah, it's become, and like OneNote in Microsoft, unfortunately, if you're on a Surface Pro, this will work. It does not work if you're on an iPad. But you can do lasso to text. So you just write something, handwrite it, and then you circle it and click, and it translates it into another document, into a Word document, and typing text, which is pretty sweet. But you have to train that thing how to follow your handwriting.
Well, and this is all what we're talking about too, about it being a dynamic and fluid work experience and environment, that probably if we talk about this next year, we'll be like, you know, we were talking about that one thing last year, that's out of the water,
Yeah,
right? This is a new
it's-
thing. So it is, it's important to always keep staying current on whatever the business trends are.
So I just to review the things that from the self-management component, we're going to talk specifically now about time management, that I want you guys to take away. One is to continually work on their flexibility, get them to try new stuff. Look, hey, if it's a new food, 1 bite, microbite, I don't care. Then tell me what you think. Because we also need them to have an openness to trying those new things. And the other thing is really the tracking component of that. That's self-monitoring. Our population is really terrible at this. They think they do things a certain way, and it is not at all how they do them. You know, like we track all their attendance and their tardiness. They're like, well, I'm only late a couple minutes. Well, if a couple is 37, then yeah, then yes, you're right. But if that's not the case, then that's something that, you know, we got to work on. And so the more they're aware of certain behaviors, and we don't want them to track everything. We've had that problem too. Oh, I'm supposed to track things. And next thing you know, we get this list. It's like 10 miles long. Like, well, it took me 18 seconds to say hi to my dad. And I was like, no, like that's not, it's just the behavior that you want to change. You know, or that if somebody else says, hey, this represents a problem. So, okay, we'll go into time management. So, time management, I have a little acronym for this. So I call it PET. And that stands for prioritize, estimate, track, and then because it's a circle, then you reprioritize. And I've had so many parents, and I've taught this for a long time. I developed this over time, and I get really geeked out on stuff like this. I'm really proud of this little thing, because I spent a lot of time analyzing. I know it seems really dumb. Most of us do this automatically, and most people's first reaction is, I don't actually do it that way. So when we talk about prioritization, it's just putting things in order of importance. But there's a number of ways to establish importance. And this is where our guys who have executive functioning issues, or our people, sorry, young adults, yes, have executive functioning issues, have a lot of trouble with this. So we're spending a lot of time on giving them different ways of prioritizing. So you can do most urgent first. Hey, this is due tomorrow. I can't tell you how many times I'm working with an individual on homework and they're like, well, that'll only take me 5 minutes, so I don't care, I'm gonna do it last. But it's the only thing you have that's due tomorrow. Like, why do it last when you might forget, or it might, come too late, or what have you? Most available first. This is something a lot of people don't consider. So they'll be like, okay, and the example I was giving is I got my bridesmaid's dress, and I've got to go to Hawaii on Friday, but I've got to get it tailored. They just shipped it to me, so first thing tomorrow morning, I got to go into the tailor. So that's first thing on my list. But guess what? The tailor doesn't open until 8. So there's a bunch of things from the time that I get up, which for me is like 4:45, until it opens at 8, that I can prioritize ahead of that. If you can't do that right now, don't put that first on your list, but think about that. Because a lot of times when I'm working with our population, they're like, no, this is most important, and they'll kill 2 hours. Because they're like, I have to do this first. Okay, what are we gonna do now? Well, we're just gonna focus on this thing, we're gonna wait, or I'm gonna watch TV, right? You can also analyze the order of tasks by efficiency, convenience, or steps. Look, LA is a sprawling wasteland of freeways and traffic, whatever. The example that I was giving them is I'm an avid cyclist, and there's 2 places that I like to get my bike fixed. Same company, Performance Bike, because you buy a subscription and they just fix your bike as many times as you want all year. It's pretty sweet. So, but they're in Santa Monica or Calabasas. Bummer. Right, I live in Hollywood, so I have to, whenever I am going to Santa Monica, I gotta have my bike in the back of my car. And I gotta think, like, I don't wanna drive around on the roof all the time because it's worth more than my car. Somebody's gonna steal it. I'm not sure what that says about my car, but you gotta really think about this. Like, and the other example I give is like, look, this is a common example. So, okay, how many people go to more than one grocery store when they're buying their stuff? Yeah, pretty much everybody, right? And you know that you're not going to find parking at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, and so, but if you're going to do it, and the example that I was giving is, let's say I'm throwing a party, and there's a particular thing that I really love to get, that brand of thing that I love to get at Whole Foods, but they don't always have it. They for sure have a brand I don't like at Ralph's, but I also need to get ice. So let's come up with the order that I need to go in. Do I go Ralph's, Whole Foods? Or do I go Whole Foods, Ralph's, and at what store do I buy the ice? It was a really hard problem for these guys. They liked it. There was a lot of discussion, and people kept going back to it, right? Everyone was able to agree, you get the ice at the last place you go. And hopefully that place is the one that's closer to your house. Great one. But that Whole Foods thing, they're like, I don't understand why that is even a factor. And it's like, well, look, if I go to Whole Foods first, and they don't have it, I can then buy it at Ralph's. But if I go to Ralph's first, and then I get to Whole Foods and they don't have it, I gotta go back. And so it's a bummer, but I should probably go to Whole Foods first. Oh, I didn't get it. I knocked it out. It looks cool. It looks cool. Yeah, catch and release. Yeah, trying to be more Buddhist.
We got that.
Yeah. Okay, and then estimating. Estimating how long things take. I've told them over and over and over and over that you have to be able to do this to do deadlines. And when we're simulating work in production lines, you have to know about how long X number of minutes of animation takes, X number of frames takes, how long it's going to take you, or you can't bid appropriately. And this happens all the time in contract work. So if I say, okay, they're going to pay me $4,000 for this, and I'm saying I'm gonna deliver it in a month, that's great, but if it's gonna take you 2 months, you're gonna miss the delivery, the client's gonna be upset, etc. Or if you were gonna mow a lawn, and I know this from mowing lawns when I was a kid, but if you're gonna mow a lawn and you don't know about how much it takes per acre, then when you're giving an estimate of what they're gonna pay you, you might totally undersell yourself. You're gonna be like, oh, well, it takes me about 2 hours per acre, and the haul of grass is 2.5. Okay, and then if I say $5, whoops, but people don't think about this a lot, or I shouldn't say people. Young adults on the autism spectrum sometimes are not putting this into. This also permits them to pace, like when you should let the client know if you're gonna be late, but you should know that early. You should know that several weeks before the deadline, like, oh wow, this isn't gonna happen. And then with lots of practice, this comes naturally. For the most part, we are doing all this tracking in our heads. Like I can tell you that from the time that I get up to shower, to shave, to get dressed, is about 27 minutes if I do so before my daughter gets up, is 2.5. If she's already up, it's an hour and 20 minutes. You need to monitor when things need to occur in order to match your priorities. This informs your estimating. So I thought that one was first. If your estimates turn out to be wrong, right? If you underestimated, you can speed up. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be behind. I gotta move faster. I gotta, allocate more time to this. If you overestimate, you can slow down, or potentially even schedule something else in there, so that you can, add something else. Now, I always tell them, look, if you overestimated. Well, it depends on which perspective you're looking at. Sorry. If you have extra time, I would say just work to completion on the same priorities, because the time that you have at the end generally feels better when there's nothing to do than being like, oh, I can add this other thing in, unless it's an issue of availability. Like, look, my friend's only in town this weekend, so I worked really hard to get ahead so I can spend time with him, I happen to be in Calabasas, so I'm gonna go get my bike fixed or whatever it is. Okay, so and then with reprioritizing, when you're running out of time, you gotta cut things. And this is also an executive functioning task. What doesn't matter? We have a ton of perfectionists in all of our drawing, and they don't want to cut anything. They want to sit there and spend hours and hours and hours on a particular thing. This may mean you might need to change the order of the tasks to improve efficiency, doing the most important ones first, doing the ones that can be fully completed in the time remaining. I'm sorry. So that one is something that is something I don't think that our population tends to think about a lot either. They'll be like, oh, well, I'll just put an extra 30 minutes on this. And then they end up with this weird stop point that's like, they can't really come back to or remember where they are, and it's really inefficient when they're returning to it. So it's great when you have really discrete tasks to be like, well, I know I can get this entire thing done in the next hour, so let's do that. And then I'll put this other thing aside for later. So these are how I'm teaching them to try and do this in terms of estimating, because this is so important for the industry to meet deadlines. So, and these are sort of two sides of the same coin. There's sampling, and this is for discrete tasks like numbered items, problems, or products. Oh, I've got to make 8 bracelets. So what do? I time how long one of them takes me, and then I multiply it by how many bracelets I need to make. And that should give me a very rough estimate. Now, we did exercises with this. I had them draw snowflakes, and I'd say, okay, how long did it take to draw a snowflake? Oh, it took me about, 45 seconds. Okay, well, now I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Draw as many as you can. And what they found is that didn't match the estimate that they could for other reasons, which we'll talk about. So, okay. And then chunking. So this is the same exact thing, but for non-discrete projects. And most of the work that we're doing in our field is non-discrete. It doesn't have a clear beginning and end. It's art. So what you do is you do the same kind of thing, but you divide the project up into what you estimate to be equal chunks. Okay, I'm going to do the background first, and then I'm going to work on the hands, and then I'm going to work on the head, and then I'm going to, as a non-artist, I'm probably ruining this, but, and then I'm going to do my cleanup, and then after the cleanup, or after my animatic, then I'm going to do all my coloration. And you have good estimates about how long those things are going to take. And then you multiply that by the number of chunks. As a rough estimate, this is about planning. And executive functioning is a big weakness in the autism population, so that's something we got to spend a lot of time working on. So the problems with these forms of estimating is they don't account for a lot of things. They don't account for setup time, travel time, transition time, break time, takedown time, saving, shutting down, etc. And again, this goes back to that issue of when I'm talking to these guys, how long does it take you to shower? They're like shower on to shower off. Okay, well, I'm sure you can do that in 15 minutes, no problem. You know, but when you're talking about drying, getting in the shower, out of the shower, you know, whatever other things you gotta do in the bathroom. So then you also need to examine pace changes when tracking. And this is something that I've learned as having been a tutor and done instructional design and educational tutoring, more so as it relates to problem behaviors, but I've done this a lot with individuals, is that when tasks are repetitive, the tendency that I've noticed of all individuals is they get faster as they go. Unless there's a physical fatigue component to it, right? If you get used to a particular kind of calculation, for example, all of a sudden you just start ripping them off. You're not worried about the problem setup, you get faster and faster and faster as those things go and you knock them out. But obviously fatigue can cause you to work slower. And what I've noticed is that when it comes to issues like reading, you just see fatigue. I'm not sure why. That seems like that should be a repetitive task, but people just get slower. So those are things that I want them to notice, because then they can put that into their estimate. Well, if I do all my setups, that's going to be the most time intensive thing. And then when I'm doing it frame by frame by frame by frame by frame, it turns out it's really repetitive and I can just knock out all the tweens really fast. Okay, I think that's it, yeah. Questions? No. So essentially what I want you to take away from that is that with time management, really push that prioritization and that estimation part of it, right? So prioritize, estimate, track. With our guys, they tend to take most desired task first, dive in, and then they spend as much time as they want to spend on it. And they're not paying attention to the clock. And this is something that we look at when we're talking, you know, about ICPs or other assessment, and we ask people, we say, hey, we want to take about 10 minutes for you to tell us about this thing. And I start a timer on my phone. And I see if they ever look at their watch, look at the clock on the wall. Not once in the 3 rounds of assessments that we've ever done has that happened. Not one person has showed them awareness of time. They just dive in. And so to me, I guess I feel pretty comfortable making a generalization that lack of awareness, and it only comes when you're tracking things all the time. Okay, hey, tell me how long this is gonna take. And they need to write it down. They need to, I remember before Waze and Google Maps, I had my Thomas guide out when I first moved to LA, right? And I actually had a chart, like a little printed out like spreadsheet looking thing about how long it took for me to drive from client to client. And then I would mark which route I took. I'd just come up with a nickname for it about, I did this route. So I could start comparing routes and times of day. And my level of precision with where I drove and how long it took got to be so good. Like I knew that if I left by 7:15, that I was gonna miss the big traffic rush to go from Koreatown to Nordhoff. And I would be there 40 minutes early. It was only about an 19 minute drive. But if I left as late as 7:21, only 6 minutes later, my drive time would be at least another 25 minutes longer. It would more than double in there. So, but people don't do that anymore. We live in an automated society, and people tend not to track. I mean, I can remember all the phone numbers of the kids that I went to grade school with, and I don't know my wife's phone number. I can barely tell you my own phone number.